Some big news here developing. An appeals court has ruled former President Donald Trump can in fact face trial on charges that he plotted to overturn the result of the 2020 election. Today's ruling rejects the former commander-in-chief's claims that he is immune from prosecution because he was president. The ruling clears the way for him to face trial for actions taken leading up to the January 6th Capitol riot. Trump's trial on the charges was originally set for March, but of course here this really sets up what could be additional appeals from the Trump camp. So joining us now to help us break down what's happening here today, we have attorney Charles Adams, who is also a former officer and judge, joining us live now from the newsroom. Thank you so much for joining us, Charles. A couple of questions here. You got a chance to take a look at this ruling. It's more than 50 pages, but from your perspective, what are some of the key takeaways here? Well, the takeaway, this is an incredibly well-written opinion that's really going to box the Supreme Court in if they decide to take this issue up on this appeal prior to the trial, right? They examined not just the existing law, but our founding fathers, framers' intent on what sort of immunity the president should have. And the founding fathers made very clear that the president wasn't a king. In the Western world that they fled from to start this country, the king was the law. So anything he did, it was okay because his actions were actually the law. And they rejected the argument that a president could do anything they want without consequence absent him being impeached, right? And the nut of the argument from the Trump camp was that if this wasn't the rule, it would prohibit a president from having the ability to do their job. But the argument that they said is, look, the impeachment, that's not a guilt or innocence process. That is a markedly political process that has nothing to do. And they went as far during the oral argument to discuss whether or not a president could intentionally kill a political opponent and get away with it. I think this is an appropriate ruling, and I think the Supreme Court will have a very, very hard time overturning it. As you mentioned, the Supreme Court here, that's a great transition for you. Do you think the Supreme Court will get involved? Or do you think because, like you mentioned, the opinion was so well written, do you think they'll let it stand, being that it was a unanimous decision as well from those judges? Well, I think a lot of people, a lot of lawyers are missing the fact that initially I think the Trump camp will look for a rehearing en banc. So this was a 3-judge panel from the 9-member Circuit Court of D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. I think it's all about delay, delay, delay. So initially they will ask for a rehearing en banc for all 9 judges to examine this opinion. I think that'll be rejected, but that'll cause additional delay. Then they have to seek certiorari from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can make a decision to take this on or they can't. Now, I would be shocked if they don't, right? Is there probably not a more important political appeal in the history of these United States? So I think they will take it up. Ultimately, I think they will affirm their decision. But all the Trump campaign is seeking is delay, and I think they've accomplished that goal. Yeah, and because you're talking about delay here, we are in full swing when it comes to the election here. Are we on a crash course, if you will? Let's say if former President Trump gets reelected, but also this case continues here and he's convicted on those charges. What are some of the implications here when you look at the judicial branch and maybe the legislative, the executive branch? Well, it's not just these charges. Let's not forget that he's facing state court prosecutions in both Georgia and New York. So we've got 4 separate criminal prosecutions looking to put the former president into prison. Now, if he's elected, I think while he's president, there is zero possibility that he will be put in prison. He will have that privilege as the elected president or the president, in fact. I do think he's looking at some real criminal liability long term, but I don't think this is going to keep him from running for office. And I think if you look at the polls, he has a tremendous chance of winning this next election. Charles, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your insight. We'll check back with you as this case continues to develop. And thank you so much, Anthony. All right.